Air fumed with a chaotic energy, a dizzying blend of pipe music that spiraled and dipped like drunken swallows, the rhythmic thud of tambourines against stretched hides, and the raw, untamed shouts that clawed their way from 1,000 throats. My own heart hammered a frantic counterpoint against my ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage of bone. Around me the throng surged, a living, breathing tapestry woven from ivy-crowned heads, wine-stained tunics and limbs that moved with a fluid abandon I'd only witnessed in dreams. Torches, stuck haphazardly in the packed earth, cast leaping shadows that danced with my frenzied crowd, painting their ecstatic faces in flickering hues of orange and crimson. The scent of roasted meats mingled with the heady perfume of spilled wine and crushed grapes, hung thick and heavy, a primal aroma that both repulsed and allured. A hand, rough and calloused, grabbed my arm, pulling me deeper into the swirling vortex. I stumbled, my carefully braided hair coming undone, tendrils escaping to whip about my face. I didn't recognize the face that grinned down at me, teeth flashing white in the torchlight, eyes glazed with a joyous madness. "Come, friend," the voice boomed over the din, thick with wine. "The god awaits. Let your worries drown in the wine-dark sea." Before I could answer, or even fully register his words, I was swept along. Another leaf caught in the Dionysian whirlwind. The ground beneath my bare feet felt slick and yielding, a treacherous mix of spilled offerings and discarded laurel leaves. Laughter sharp and unrestrained erupted all around me, punctuated by the bleating of sacrificial goat being dragged towards its makeshift altar. A shiver, not entirely unpleasant, traced its way down my spine. Fear and exhilaration warred within me. Two snakes coiled around my throat, hissing conflicting commands. Part of me, the cautious, sensible part I usually heeded, screamed to turn back, to retreat to the quiet order of my life. Another, newly awakened voice, deep within, urged me forward, towards the intoxicating chaos, towards the promise of something more. The music swelled, the drums beat faster, the crowd surged again, carrying me with it. A small boat caught in a tidal wave, ahead through the flickering light and the swaying bodies I glimpsed it, a raised platform adorned with vines, overflowing with fruit, and upon it a figure draped in a panther skin, his face hidden behind a mask of wild ivy and grapes. The air crackled with almost palpable energy, a raw, untamed power that drew me like a moth to a flame. This was it, the festival of Dionysus, and I was here. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Courtney. Welcome to the Time Travelers Club. Today we will be continuing our tour of ancient Greece as we discover where the cult of Dionysus had the most impact and how that impact is felt. We will be exploring Minoan Crete, Naxos, Thebes, Athens, Rome, and areas all over the ancient world. As we talked about last time, Dionysus got around, and the archaeology and record really does show this impact.
According to Herodotus, Melampus was the one who taught the Greeks the name of Dionysus and the way of sacrificing to him and the phallic procession. Penis parade. He did not exactly unveil the subject, taking all this detail into consideration. For the teachers who came after him made a fuller revelation, but it was from him that the Greeks learned to bear the phallus along in honor with Dionysus, and they had got their present practice from his teaching. I say then that Melampus acquired the prophetic art, being a discerning man, that besides many other things which he learned from Egypt, he also taught the Greeks things concerning Dionysus, altering a few of them, for I will not say what is done in Egypt in connection to the god, aka Osiris, and what is done amongst the Greeks originated independently, for they would be a Hellenic character and not recently introduced. Nor again will I say the Egyptians took either this or any other custom from the Greeks. But I believe Melamphos learned the worship of Dionysus chiefly from Cadmos of Tyre, and those who came from Cadmos from Phoenicia, modern-day Lebanon, to the land now called Boeotia. So this was, if this wasn't clear, this was a quote from Herodotus. I don't talk like this, but what Herodotus is saying here is that according to a person named Melampos, who he had spoke with, they're trying to get this idea that that Dionysus was imported in.
Mm-hmm.
So just to make that clear, and he goes on for this for a little while. Quote, formerly in all of their sacrifices, the Peloponnesians called upon gods without giving name or appellation to any, for as yet they had not heard of such. They called them gods from the fact that besides setting everything in order, they maintained all dispositions. Then, after a long while, first they learned the names of the rest of the gods, which came to them from Egypt, and much later the name Dionysus. So he's really insisting on the fact that Dionysus came from Egypt. Mm-hmm. This is where we have to always take Herodotus with a grain of salt, right? You'll hear a lot of people who completely dismiss him, and that's not fair. But this is a good example of why you got to kind of take some of the things he says with a grain of salt. He tries to give us definitives or a good story, even if it's not necessarily truthful. And there is no evidence that Osiris himself inspired Dionysus. Mm-hmm. There are things that they have in common. They will be conflated quite a bit later, especially with Greek colonization. But no, Osiris was not the origins of Dionysus, as you will see.
So the early cult of Dionysus was deeply connected to the raw power of nature. Think lush forests, fertile vines, and the untamed wilderness. His followers found divinity not in orderly temples alone, but in the ecstatic release found in nature's embrace. This connection is beautifully illustrated in the myths surrounding his birth and upbringing, often involving nymphs, satyrs, and a life lived outside of the traditional domains of the Olympian gods. Central to the early Dionysian cult were rituals that aimed to break down the barriers of the self and achieve a state of ecstasis, literally standing outside of oneself. Or we actually use this today in meditations as kind of an aside, where we are trying to literally get out of our own head, get out of our ego, get out of our self. So this has been happening for a long fucking time.
Ecstasis, right? Like, let's be real. Ecstasis, ecstasy, existential. Both of those are like, ecstasy, of course, is not just a recreational drug, but it does the thing where it makes you feel bliss and that euphoria. But it also comes along with this idea of like an outer body kind of feeling or experience, that feeling like you've broken through your own shell. And then, of course, existential just means to be outside of yourself. So both of those terms come from this concept, which was Dionysian in origin.
Absolutely. So this could be achieved through various means. The intoxicating effects of wine, the rhythmic pulse of music and dance, and the powerful sense of communal participation. Imagine oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Like,
it's a concert, guys.
No,
like,
exactly.
Wow.
A rave. What do people do at a rave?
Right. A rave, like a club, a concert.
Exactly. That music, that pulsing crowd, that will get you out of your head and out of yourself and allow people to kind of shed that stress for a reason. This is why it's attractive. I promise you.
Yeah, and like when you go to a concert, think about it, especially if you've had a couple drinks or Trulies, whatever the hell you're drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beers, whatever, for you heteros out there, your Bud Lights. The point is, it's just, like, but the point is just that, yeah, like, it's a euphoria, right? You dance and you're free of your inhibitions. You don't care. I mean, this is a tradition we're continuing up to the present day, and I don't think it's that unrelatable.
No, it's not. This is part of the human behavior, and this is like the mystical explanation for why we do these things. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. That's really all it is. So imagine the early Dionysian processions winding through the countryside. They weren't necessarily grand, organized affairs, but perhaps more spontaneous gatherings fueled by fervent devotion. Followers, both men and women, might adorn themselves with ivy and vine leaves, carrying thyrsi, staffs tipped with pine cones and entwined with ivy. The air would be filled with the sounds of pipes, tambourines, and the cries of Bacchia, the ecstatic shouts associated with the god. A particularly fascinating aspect of the early cult was the prominent role of women, known as maenads, or the frenzied ones. Myth depicts them as figures of immense power, capable of superhuman feats when in their ecstatic state. Stories abound of the maenads tearing apart wild animals with their bare hands.
Or your nephew. Or your son.
Like, yeah, or
because you thought they were lying.
I mean, possibly. Like, they're ripping things apart. But this is a symbolic representation of the breaking down of civilized order and a return to the primal state. So they're not this civilized thing where, they're a proper lady or they're a proper Greek woman. No, they are wild. They are absolutely wild, which is beautiful.
Ape shit.
No, and it's beautiful. It really is. So
I'm thinking of Down with the Sickness.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, that was terrible. But yes, that.
Yep.
Yes. So while the literal truth of these myths is debated, they highlight the intense emotional and physical involvement expected of Dionysus's early devotees. The Dianthrab, an ancient Greek hymn sung and danced in honor of Dionysus, played a crucial role in these early rituals. These performances were often improvisational and emotionally charged, believed to have been a precursor to the development of Greek tragedy and comedy. In this way, Dionysus wasn't just a god of revelry, but also deeply entwined with the very origins of dramatic art, which, I was a theater kid. This is like right up my alley.
And I think when I was young and I was, a kid and I'm, my big old nerd in the library reading the Greek myths while everyone else was reading, I don't know, whatever chapter book they were assigned to get points for. My school did that. You had special books with stickers, and based off the color of the sticker, you got points, which meant you got like rewards. And even though I did like the most reading by far, I never read those books. So then I never got anything. And like, there's like a quota you were supposed to hit. My God, they were really initiating us into like corporate America. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is like, as a kid, I feel like I remember thinking like, that's kind of weird, right? Like the god of like partying and drinking and then also theater. And I just guess I probably went, it's probably just like, like he's the god of miscellanea. Like,
no.
I don't know. That's like my brain went to, but this makes more sense now. And this is why, again, it's really important to talk about these things in depth, because otherwise you'd think that these things might be kind of completely unrelated. You could argue, you drink wine and stuff maybe at the theater, but no one's getting sloshed when they go see like Hamilton.
I mean, possibly, possibly. You never know.
But like, I think that it's just like, some of that's modern theater and our ideas of it. But I feel like, no one in the history of theaters ever liked that guy who's like, I suck, and he's screaming, like, come on, you're doing it for everybody else.
Did you ever play The
But
Witcher
like, so, but
3?
this makes sense if they kind of came, wasn't that organized to begin with, and it was
No,
just
it
spontaneous.
wasn't.
Well, now that makes more sense.
And
So,
it's play. It's play. Dionysus is
and
over play. Because what do kids do?
yeah,
They play pretend. They take these roles and they
yeah,
play city in the forest where all of a sudden they're
right,
exchanging, quote, goods, which are just big rocks, in exchange for small shells. Like, it's
oh,
play.
right, and it's a very primal thing. And then like, so we're really getting into it now. We're really breaking it down now, guys. But like for real, like it's an outer body experience.
Mm-hmm.
You are it's like an upending of everyone's roles, and like commoners can be kings, and kings can be like everybody can be whoever they want if you're in a play, right? And like it's that breakdown of like, so for at least one night, that breakdown of social order, you know, at least on stage, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, so that it does make a lot more sense that he would be the patron god of that.
absolutely.
All right. However, as we hinted at last time with the myths episode, the cult of Dionysus wasn't always accepted without resistance. Its emphasis on altered states of consciousness and its sometimes unruly nature could be seen as a threat to the established social and religious order.
I wonder
Again,
why.
we talked about this last time, guys. Just be cool, right? And it won't
Just be
upend
chill.
nothing.
and he
Just be
won't
cool.
have you
Just
drawn
be
and
nice.
quartered.
Be respectful, demure, okay? And everyone will be fine. Don't lock up people who are just trying to have a good time.
I mean, true.
Don't be a party pooper.
Don't be a wet blanket.
Myths like that. Exactly. Don't be a stick up someone's ass. Come on. Or he will put a vine up yours.
Oh!
It won't be pretty. Myths like that of King Pentheus and Euripides as the Bacchae. That's the one we talked about last time, with the ant. And, how they were disrespectful to his dead mom. And, his cousin, the king, was disrespectful to his dead mom. So then he had his aunt, the king's mom, rip him apart. Only after he made him cross-dress. Yeah. The one, guys. Illustrate this tension, depicting the tragic consequences of rejecting the power and the followers of Dionysus. These stories serve as a reminder of the transformative and sometimes disruptive forces that early Dionysian cults represented. Over time, the worship of Dionysus became more integrated into the broader Greek religious landscape. While the static elements remained, the rituals evolved and became more formalized and incorporated into the city-state festivals. Yet, the echoes of that wilder, more primal connection to the god, the ecstatic dances in nature, the powerful presence of the Maenads, the raw emotionality of it's my turn to mess this up. Dithyramb. You did it better. It's okay. I'm giving
It's fine.
one to you. I'm better at reading it. It's provide a fascinating glimpse into the early power and allure of the cult of Dionysus.
All right. So we're going to talk about the Minoan religious landscape here. All right. So to understand the potential... Yes. Go for it.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, this just, she's going to get into the weeds with it. This is like, we're going to try and work it's geographical, but it's a little bit also chronological. And of course the Minoans are like the precursor to what we understand to be ancient Greece today.
Yep.
I don't like saying that they're ancient Greeks because really they were a different culture with a different language and a different everything. But the Greeks themselves were inspired by the Minoans, and this is where we'll start.
All right. To understand the potential role of Dionysus, we must first consider the broader context of a Minoan religion. Our knowledge is primarily based on archaeological evidence, as the Minoan linear A script remains largely undeciphered. Minoan religion appears to have been heavily centered on female deities, often associated with nature, fertility, and animals, like much of the ancient world, to be honest. Prominent symbols include the bull, the double axe, the labrys, snakes, and sacred horns. There's evidence of worship in palaces, peak sanctuaries, caves, and household shrines, indicating a very diverse range of ritual practices. So they had their religion everywhere. Their iconography is everywhere within their society. It's not just you only have it here. You only have it here. It's like, no. The gods are living with you. They are beside you at your table. They are with you in your temple. They are with you at work. Like, they are with you constantly.
Yeah, and like just as like a little aside, because this isn't the Minoan like episode or anything like that. It doesn't really serve like the grander arc in this thing, but Minoan culture, there's a lot of debate on whether they were maybe even truly just matriarchal, right? Like women were the ones in charge, women were the ones honored, women, it wasn't like, okay, like separate but equal, like no, like women were above, like the goddesses were above the gods. And then men came in and they had to ruin everything.
As they do. But it's okay. We love you anyway. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'm sorry, guys. It's my fault.
It's not your fault. You're fine. All right. So traditionally...
It's their fault.
Yes.
Don't stop.
Traditionally, Dionysus was often considered a later addition to the Greek pantheon, possibly arriving from Thrace or Asia Minor. However, the discovery of his name, Dionyso, on Linear B tablets from the Mycenaean Greece, approximately the 13th century BCE, provides the possibility of the presence of his cult in the Greek world at least that early. But with that being said, this raises the possibility of earlier roots, perhaps even in Minoan Crete, as any earlier forms of writing like Linear A have yet to be deciphered. But here's some of our clues and connections. For example, several lines of inquiry suggest a potential, albeit nuanced, connection between Minoan Crete and Dionysus. The island of Crete featured in several myths associated with Dionysus, though often indirectly. For instance, the myth of Ariadne, who was abandoned by Theseus on Naxos and subsequently married Dionysus, has strong Cretan ties through Ariadne's parentage as the daughter of King Minos. This connection, while not placing Dionysus squarely in Minoan worship, hints at a geographical and mythical proximity. Furthermore, some scholars have linked the figure of Zagreus, a primordial deity associated with bulls and dismemberment in some Orphic traditions, with the early forms of Dionysus and potentially Minoan religious concepts. Crete is cited as a location for Zagreus' myth.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense now too, because if you know anything about the Zagreus myth, which we'll talk about a little bit probably next time, yeah, it's like he's torn limb from limb by the Titans or whatever. And like, so it's kind of interesting that later stories of Dionysus have his followers tearing people limb from limb, or being drawn and quartered or whatever. So that, I mean, that feels like a weird coincidence,
Yes.
It feels like really, like it's not really a coincidence. But on that note, the bull held a central symbolic role in Minoan culture, evident in bull-leaping frescoes, bull-headed rhytons, those drinking vessels that they're gorgeous, that you see, like they're it's like literally in the shape of a bull's head, and you can drink from it. The ubiquitous horns of consecration found at sacred sites. Dionysus, in later Greek traditions, had a strong association with bulls, sometimes depicted with horns or even taking the form of a bull. This shared symbolism could suggest an earlier shared religious substratum or later influence. Some interpretations even link the Minoan sacred bull with a proto-Dionysian figure. While archaeological evidence for large-scale winemaking in Minoan Crete isn't as prominent As in later periods in Greek history, the cultivation of grapes and the production of wine were likely known. Wine was undoubtedly a significant commodity and likely held some ritualistic importance. Given Dionysus' primary association with wine, the presence of winemaking in Minoan Crete would have provided a foundation for the later adoption or recognition of a wine deity. Within Minoan art depicts scenes that some scholars interpret as having ecstatic or trance-like elements, often connected with nature and female figures. And just like, again, like a little side note, I feel like if you're leaping bulls and stuff, you gotta be on something. I mean, like, we can all be like, oh, they were just super brave, but I feel like there's a lot of rituals across the world where they have to be on a substance to do that. It's just saying. And it would
I've
make
seen
a lot
some
of
of
sense if
the
they were.
I've seen some of the stuff in Spain where they're doing like the bull runs and fuck that.
Yeah. But like, and even then, a lot of them are like, drinking and getting trashed before they do it. I mean, it just, to me, it makes sense. That's my fan fiction. There's no evidence that says that they were drunk when they were doing the bull leaping. Probably wouldn't have been recommended, in my opinion. You probably want to be pretty coordinated, but who knows?
True.
While not directly identifiable as Dionysian, these depictions of movement, altered states, and communion with the natural world resonate with the aspects of later Dionysian worship. This strong emphasis on nature deities in Minoan religion could have provided a receptive environment for gods embodying the life force and wilderness of nature. The discovery of the name Pentheus, the one that got torn apart by his mom, because he made Dionysus mad, on linear B tablets from Knossos, has some scholars to speculate potentially early interactions with Dionysian themes, even if the specific deity wasn't worshipped in the fully formed later Greek manner. I mean, come on, guys. The guy who gets torn apart in the later stories, the names showing up in reference to these, I just feel like...
It makes sense. It makes too much sense. Yeah. And so, of course, it can't be.
Right. I mean, until they say Dionysus was here, you can't say it. But I just feel like I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's crucial to acknowledge the challenges in definitively identifying Dionysus in Minoan Crete. There are no clear depictions or inscriptions explicitly naming or directly referring to Dionysus in Minoan archaeological finds or in the undeciphered Linear A script. It is also important that even if his worship is linked, that he might not be recognizable to the late depictions in classical Greece. The Minoan religions has strong emphasis on female deities that might suggest a different primary focus of worship. These religious figures and their associated rituals often evolve over time, and any potential Minoan precursor to Dionysus might have been significantly different than the later Greek god.
Absolutely. There's got to be evolution over time with this, because you don't know. Like, even like I will pick my own belief for a minute, right? For me, I fully believe none of the gods really changed. Their name changed over time. Are you the same person that you were as a teenager? Are you the same person that you were at 21? There's an evolution that has to happen, right? So, over time, if they are an immortal figure or an immortal thought form, in a sense, they have to change. Their story probably is going to morph to more so, lead with the change, but they are going to change over time. Makes sense.
Exactly. And you see this throughout, just mythology in general, where when we do have a through line, this goddess was imported from here, who was imported from there, who was imported to there from there. And yes, it's like a game of telephone, and that's not including then once you've got them spread out like that, the chronological development within those completely separate cultures.
Yep.
So I mean, like you see that with Ishtar, and talk about that someday.
Yep.
Not this time, but But she's a really good example. No, but she's a really good example of that.
Fully
She's
agreed.
one of the few where we can go. Yet we have kind of like the through line. That's the thing with not having linear A. We don't have the through line here. We have visual hints and references that seem to be too much of a coincidence. But it's again, there's nothing here saying Dionysus was here. Just we
He
don't have
didn't
that.
graffiti the wall.
I know that sounds like something he would do.
No, he would. He would have literally carved a penis into the wall and said Dionysus.
Yes.
Like, that would have absolutely been him, and he would have been down for it. I am convinced that's my headcanon. All right. It's so true, though.
I just can't get that image out of my head.
What can I say?
That's where Romans got the idea
welcome.
from.
Probably, and it's probably why 12-year-old boys still do it here in America. No.
I was like, this is the origin of the unsolicited dick pic from Dionysus. No, he's all about consent. No.
He's all about consent, and you made me sound like a chicken. Thanks so much for that. Oh my god. All right. So if you remember from...
Naxos.
Yes, on to Naxos, please. If you remember from our Dionysus Myths and Stories episode, Naxos was important to the central story of Dionysus. According to some of the myths, the jealous goddess Hera beguiled the young Semele into asking Zeus to appear in front of her in his all-divine splendor. Zeus granted her wish, but the mortal woman could not bear the awesome sight. She perished. But Zeus saved their unborn child. He stitched the embryo into his thigh, whence Dionysus was born. His testicles. Absolutely. Like,
it was his nutsack. It was Thor's nutsack. We covered that.
Dionysus was born in Naxos. Although the core tradition is that Dionysus was then carried off to the distant Mount Nysia in Asia, another one claims that the Nymphelia Clede or Coronis took over Dionysus' upbringing, hiding him in the cave of Coronos on Naxos, the same cave that Zeus was said to be hidden from Cronos. Due to this belief, the people of Naxos worshipped Dionysus, who in turn blessed their island with rich vineyards. In another story, Naxos is also the island where the ships carry home the future king of Athens, Theseus, made a stop. Theseus' greatest tool bag of the ancient world was returning home a victor, having killed the Minotaur, the beast-like guardian of the labyrinth, son of Minos. He had also eloped with Ariadne, daughter of Minos, who, if hadn't helped him, he would be super dead. And in return, he banged her and left her while she was sleeping and took his ships without saying anything. Left her in a foreign land without resources. So she woke up bewildered, and when she finally realized she had just been ghosted in the worst way possible, she was heartbroken. But despite looking like a hot mess after probably crying and being left for dead in the middle of nowhere, the god Dionysus happened to be coming by and had fallen in love with Ariadne. And with Ariadne now alone, Dionysus appeared to her and asked if, she could be his wife, and declaring she was too good for Theseus anyway, which absolutely she was, because fuckboy. But...
Exactly. No, because you know what? At least with fuckboy, it'd be like consensual. There are plenty of people, he's a good play, and they aren't looking for nothing serious anyway. No, he's just a douche. That was a douche thing to do. It's not even the first time. He does it so often in his myth. He's such a jerk. He's also a serial killer. He's like Dexter. He kills other serial killers, and no one questions it.
Nobody ever does. And they call him the hero. Go figure.
Yeah, he's like one of the few heroes though who goes out of his way. His deeds are killing people. When you that, when the 12 labors of Hercules come along, it's not that he doesn't kill a person here and there, but for the most part, it's like killing monsters, things that we can all agree. Well, except animal lovers, but
yeah.
Typically back then, everyone could agree he had to be gotten rid of. But in Theseus's case, it's really weird on his journey to Athens. He, being a teenager, he just goes around killing all these people, human beings, mortal
Yep.
human beings. And it's just, I mean, and I guess they're supposed to have done bad things, but like,
I
it's
mean,
just, I mean, to be fair, he's the only one left alive, so who knows? But,
yeah, and that's where I'm just like, yeah, I don't know if I trust him. But yeah, I don't
mm,
at all. But should you look up to the skies on a clear night to try to spot the corona borealis, it is said that Dionysus used this constellation to wreath Ariadne's beautiful head. He gave his wife a crown of stars.
yeah, she upgraded. We all have that ex that was a bad choice, and that's okay. And you know what? We always afterwards find the guy that's way better. So,
Yes.
good for her. It's okay, Ariadne. It's not your fault. You were in an abusive situation, and you just want some love, and you deserve it.
You go, girl.
So,
We got this.
the island of Naxos was a significant cult center for the Greek god. Obviously, a major temple dedicated to Dionysus was located on Naxos, considered one of his main temples, along with the one in Thebes. The sanctuary at Gyria, south of Naxos's town. So there's a town of Naxos. So there's the island of Naxos with the town of Naxos, and Gyria is like a sanctuary just outside of Naxos, the town. Confused? But
I mean, it's just like New York and New York City. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, it's like I live in New York, New York. I mean, yeah. It's, yeah. I mean, one day people, in the 2,000 years from now are going to be so confused. Anyway, so this was also dedicated to Dionysus and possibly a female deity of nature operating for centuries. Like we talked about with the Minoans, this may have also kind of be that connection between Dionysus and those nature deities that maybe that precursor god seemed to be connected to as well. To me, that again shows some of that evidence of evolution. It's showcasing the island's importance in his worship. Dionysus was the god of wine, festivity, and fertility, and Naxos was known for its rich vineyards and wine production. The cult of Dionysus involved various practices, including ecstatic trance techniques, dancing, and celebrations, like the standard.
Yep.
This island was the sacred place of the Aegean, with uninterrupted life and function from the 14th century BC onward. The religious function of Gyria, sanctuary at Livadae, Naxos, dates back to the prehistoric times, aka 1300 BC, and the use of the site for religious purposes continues uninterrupted until today. Its importance is attested not only by the splendid architectural finds, but also numerous votive offerings dedicated to the deity worshipped in the sanctuary during all its long history, but especially during the earlier periods. The importance of the buildings discovered in Uria are so great that the scientific discussion on the subject has taken central place in international archaeological bibliography and in handbooks on ancient architecture. The worship on this site has brilliantly testified the uninterrupted sequence, worship of Dionysus in antiquity, and the relative St. George later on. This sequence supports a vivid way all other evidence that bears witness to a cultural continuity, my goodness, at Naxos since 1500 BC onwards.
No, and that's amazing. The fact that we can actually say, like, it never stopped. It's still going on.
Yeah, to me, again, proof, we don't have like that prima, like, that protean Dionysus, I guess, like definitively, but like to me this is kind of proof because we do have evidence of how he turned somehow into aspects of St. George. If we didn't have the connection between those two, would we ever been able to, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I think like when people think of St. George and the Dragon, they're not thinking of Dionysus, but like here it's again proof that as something gets taken, you're sometimes blending them with your local deities and local beliefs to create something new. And we have evidence of that here with those two aspects. So it's not that big of a stretch.
No, it's not. And just like I said, the names change, the person doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
The identity really doesn't.
Exactly.
So an open-air cult that lasted from the Mycenaean times, 1300 to 1100 BC, until the Middle Geometric Second Period, 800 to 750 BC, was succeeded at Uria by a worship housed in 4 superimposed buildings, found in successive layers at exactly the same site and with the same orientation. Like, that's big.
To interrupt, yeah, and to just interrupt, like to kind of give you like the visual, because not everyone's trained like to think this way. They're just saying that over these like these different periods, right? There are 4 buildings, and they're pretty much like as they were digging down, archaeologists, there's like one built on top of the other, right? So every time they would rebuild this thing for whatever reason, they made sure it still lined up with the old plan. So
yes, and that actually that's huge. And I honestly want to see what direction this faces, because I can almost guarantee you, much like other archaeological sites, it probably lines up with the equinoxes or the solstices, or I know a lot of churches and things like that, like they face east, so that at the evening mass or whatever it is, the windows catch the setting sun and the pastor is illuminated.
And my like sources didn't, or I mean, it could, sometimes it's geographical too. It's not necessarily like directional. Sometimes it's like so like, for example, if you go to like Kyoto and certain areas of China, because Kyoto was inspired by Chinese imperial cities during the Heian period, they intentionally had the mountain to the back of the palace. That was really important. And so like sometimes it's like, is it lined up with maybe the mountain he was born? I don't know. This is speculation. The source I read didn't really, I didn't pay attention. It didn't say, but clearly this orientation was a big one.
Oh yeah, and it was important. And it's just, I kind of like, I want to do like a little side thing. Let's discover the importance of it. I want to see what it faces. I want to see what the proximity of everything is. Like I want to go. Brandon, I want to go. Let's just go. It's fine.
Let's go.
You know, we'll hop on a plane.
Yeah,
it's great.
I mean, it's oh darn guys, we need to go to Naxos, a beautiful tropical island in the middle of the Mediterranean Greek seas. Whatever shall we do? I guess we'll just have to do it because we love
eventually
you guys so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I know, not right now, but eventually.
So the first was built around 800 BC, and it consisted of a single room constructed of wood and bricks. A probable flooding of the nearby river Byblinus, today known as the Pericydes, or I think I butchered that, Pericydes. There we go. Destroyed the first building. Around 730 BC, it was replaced by a hall intended for mystery rites, with 4 aisles defined by colonnades. Around the walls were benches for the worshippers. After the destruction... Yes. Kind of. I mean, is that such a stretch? Probably. With those kinds of rites and what I know of, just... Because I've dove a little bit into the, the mysteries of this in terms of what they actually did. That's not too far. It's really not too far to think of it.
No, we're not trying to wash it, but we're not trying to demonize it either.
No.
You know what? No kink shaming here. They had orgies, guys, and there was sex. A lot of it. And it was hot and messy. And that was beautiful.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be.
Let your freak flag fly.
Yeah. Not even at half-mast. Full mast. Full mast freak flag. Let's go.
Full mast. I'm sure a lot of them were.
Gigantic phalluses. All right. Bring it back. Woo! Okay. So after the destruction for unknown reasons of this second temple, a third building was erected in
Correct.
680 BC erected. Ha 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 ha. We're such children, I swear. At the same time, or at the same site, using some of the earlier walls. This had 3 aisles and an early form of tetrastyle portico. This too was short-lived. Around the end of the 7th century BC, the cult was again carried out into the open air, the focus being a 4-sided clay hearth. It was found practically intact, and it is visible beneath the marble threshold of the later Adyton?
Adyton.
Okay.
Adyton. Well, whatever.
Who knows? At 580 to 5...
Cool, though.
It is. It really is.
They kind of went back to their OD. They're like, why are we making this harder, guys?
No, and it makes sense. Dionysus is the god of the wilds. He's the god of the outside. Why are you putting barriers on him? Why are you putting barriers between you and the wilds? You gotta be out there, babes. But around 580 to 570 BC, work began on the 4th and largest temple of all, the only one of which still remains visible, and the only one to have been restored. It is an archaic hecatompedon. Tompedon? Hecatompedon. Tompedon.
Hecatompedon.
I'm sorry, that just sounds like a booty shaking song. I ain't gonna lie.
Hecatompedon.
Of Ionic style. It is built of local granodiorite rock, and it has an adyton for a mystery cult, marble portico, prostasis, with columns forming a monumental entrance and a marble altar. 2 tetrastyle marble colonnades divide the building into 3 aisles. Levadi, the location of the sanctuary, is a fertile valley, still used by the locals for cultivation.
That's what's beautiful. It's like, it's still going on. Like that same, it's not so, I feel like the ancient Greeks that lived here would have noticed, they would relate to these people now. They're not living too different of a life. I think that's great.
It is.
So, also located in Naxos is the Kouros of Apollonius, also called the Colossus of Dionysus. Yes, you heard that right. I just said Apollonius, and we will explain. It is a 10.7 meter tall, unfinished statue of a light gray Naxian marble with a weight of around 80 tons. It is located in an ancient quarry near Apollonius, a small town in the northern part of Naxos. The statue is a Kouros dating from the archaic period of ancient Greece, around the turn of the 7th and 6th centuries BC. The Kouros of Apollonius is located in an ancient marble quarry, which is one of the oldest quarries in Greece. It lies not far from Apollonius, an unpaved road above the village. The statue was formerly considered to be a god of Apollo. Since it was located near the town, Apollonius, see, that's where we're going with it. I know it wasn't that big of a stretch, but scholar Bondelemont called it a statue Apollonius in the 15th century on the account of the proximity to the sanctuary of Apollo. Ludwig Ross referred to it as the statue of Apollo in 1840. The name stuck for a long time, although eventually historians identified the statue as of Dionysus. The figure is roughly carved. The body, head with a beard and ears, and the beginning of the hair are roughly recognizable. Arms have been cut by stonemasons as rudimentary rectangles, and the shaping of the feet had been begun. They are located about on a 50-centimeter high plinth. The unfinished Kouros lies in a rough stone slope. The extent of which the rocks of the Kouros are contemporary with its construction cannot be determined. The cracks are already visible in a sketch from 1835 by Schwaubert for a copper etching. In most cases, Kouros statues depict naked young men with their arms at their sides. It is clear, however, that the Kouros of Apollonius was to be a depiction of an older man with a beard that its right arm would have stretched out in front of it. The archaic chori have usually been interpreted as depictions of Apollo. On account of its beard, the chorus of Apollonius has instead been interpreted as the Greek god Dionysus.
He just hadn't been moved yet. He wasn't done yet. It's fine.
Yeah, it's kind of like you'll see this happen a lot, like in Egypt. You'll see like sometimes like for whatever reason they'll stop working on it. Maybe they notice an imperfection or something like that, and they're like, nope, not worth it. You'll see it with the Moai on Easter Island. They would do that sometimes.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, this just wasn't the one. It doesn't say why. I don't know if it was because of an imperfection. Maybe there were budget cuts. Maybe there was a war going on, and anything could have stopped it. But it never got picked back up again. So
no, and that's unfortunate because I want to see what the original vision would have been for it. And right now we can only guess.
Yeah.
So I might butcher this name. I do apologize. According to Carl Blumel, am I correct?
Yeah, close enough.
Ish. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not good with an umlaut. I'm way too.
Carl right.
I got Carl right. Fair enough. A sculptor and director of the Pergamon Museum. Greek quarrying in early times was similar to Egyptian quarrying practice, which makes sense because of proximity. The rough form of the figure was carved out. The sculptors were especially able to work on the sides. They worked layer by layer, creating flat contour areas, so the sculptures never worked on a leg, arm, or head individually, but always on the sculpture as a whole, and thus the whole figure was at the same stage of completion at each moment. So it was almost like the sculpture literally emerging from the rock, nose tip at a time, which is such an impressive imagery to have. It's almost like if we turned the rock into water, it's like them coming out of the water, like their full form starting to come out of that, which is just, to me, that is just stunning,
Yeah, I mean, I think we have this, especially because of pop culture, watch any cartoon, right, or whatever. It's like, how are sculptures made? It's like they have the chisel, their hammer, right? And it's usually, if they're showing it being worked in process, it's like the head and the arms, that upper half are completely formed, and then it's like they're working their way down, which is just a big lump,
Yep.
And while that does happen as an art major, I know that honestly, that's not the way most people do it. Even when I was in school, even with two-dimensional art, it's I remember in high school even, my teacher was just make sure you don't hyper-focus on one area. Make sure you're always keeping an eye on the whole thing. You want the same kind of level of completion throughout the whole thing, because if you're focusing on one detail, it's really, really obvious. And in the case of a sculpture, if you're really hyper-focused on one area, and you've put all this time and effort into it, and then by the time you get to, say, the bottom, there's an imperfection that you didn't know about because you hadn't been working on it.
Well, damn.
Just spend all that time for what?
Yep.
Right.
And that would just suck.
I mean, it does honestly make sense.
It does. So
and these aren't artists who, sorry. I was just going to say, these aren't artists either who we think of today where it's one individual or something like that. It's these were craftsmen.
These are a team.
This was their job. This is their job more specifically, though. Okay, it's someone who built a house. It's not that there's not artistry there, but your contractor's okay, this is what the architect designed, let's put it together.
Absolutely.
That's kind of more what we're thinking here. So.
Absolutely, and it just all of this team working simultaneously to make this amazing piece of art. Just honestly, I wish this is where I really wish we had that time travel machine, because I would love to go see it. I want to go experience it, or maybe see it in a time lapse where it just emerges. I want to see it emerge. But only after the creation of the rough contour was the figure rounded out. This is all clearly demonstrated by the Chorus of Apollonius. The sculptors used bronze chisels, which have left numerous holes in the sculpture, which were probably also the result of the use of pickaxes and hammers, and would have been smoothed out over the course of the work by the use of their finer chisels and gentler blows. By smashing the crystal grains of the marble, this work created a smooth surface at the finishing stages. The sculptors got no further in their plans to transport this Koros, since a route for the further transport of the statue was never carved into the stone. On account of its size and weight, the figure remained unfinished in the quarry. Other reasons for the statue remaining unfinished are mentioned in tourist guidebooks and websites, but these cannot be demonstrated. There is a claim that it was realized late in the production process that the statue had several cracks, or it is assumed that the ancient sculptors thought it might break down during the process of cutting it out of the ground, or that the sculpture was not paid for, which, the craftsman got to be paid. Let's be real.
Well, no, how would you even know?
No work, no pay, no work. I'm not going to do it. We're not going to do it.
That's like where, but that's like pure speculation too. It's like, it's not like what there was like a receipt. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I mean, yes, it could be a reason, but to say that is the reason, like,
no.
There's no way. There's no way there's evidence for that for like a culture that didn't even really have writing at this point.
No, and that's the thing. We don't know. And because we don't know, we can only come up with any kind of reason. And there's so many cultural things that could have happened. There's so many economic type things that could have happened. We don't know. We just know that this amazing piece of art was left unfinished. So the view of the archaeologist Gruben said that the monolith was too heavy to transport is undisputed in academic works. So he has put forth that this is why, and nobody fights him, which I'm not going to lie. This is also one of the reasons why I dislike academia, because just because somebody is educated does not mean that that is the reason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and like Gruben, I mean, so like context, like that this came from a while ago. So it also just proves that no one's taken enough interest to just double check and like, maybe find if there was another reason or to verify. But
something.
And sometimes you get that. It's like, well, that sounds like a good enough reason to me. And that happens a lot in history, unfortunately. And that's like, you'll say like, and all the time, it's like, oh, well, like like the Pyramid of Khufu, for example. There was for a long time, because of Herodotus, everyone just assumed that he had only lived under like 20 years. And now we know a lot more about like Egyptian culture, how their taxation works and stuff, which you're like, Brandon, what does that got to do with anything? Well, they do essentially like a cow tax every 2 years. And in his mortuary temple, they had found that he was on the 14th cow tax. So if we're doing the math there, every 2 years, that means it was 28 years. Much longer. And he'd celebrate potentially something called the Sed Festival, which was, again, traditionally held every 30 years a pharaoh was alive. So, like, Ramesses had a couple of them. But, like, that being said, it's pretty plausible that he had, like, a 30-plus year reign, which completely changes our view on how long it took to build the pyramid. And, like, what that looked like. So we see this a lot, and it's just like, people take it for granted.
No, it's just people are taking things as fact instead of this is a academic guess, and this is our best academic guess right now. And like this is what I wish would happen. And of course, I'm going to go off on my little tangent because it's me. Hi. What I wish would happen is this is what we think happened now instead of this is what happened.
And you are seeing that. There's a lot of things like we're talking about Cleopatra eventually down the line. I think the stereotypical story is still out there. The Roman propaganda is out there, but so many people have completely re-examined it, and further dissected it, and like we have a more clear picture now. And she's one example. The Khufu thing I just brought up, that's another example. And I think we are, as a society and stuff, questioning things, more. And again, now that we're taking archaeologists seriously too, that's also helpful. We're not just relying on written accounts. Well, this written account says this, so that's what's always been written as, so therefore it must be. And we're realizing, well, this contradicts that. So it's okay to have different, and at least verify things. Check your work. Check someone else's work. Don't just take everything at face value. And,
Yes.
a lot of the times it is exactly what it is. But, you know, um, usually there's probably a little bit more to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, to summarize, while direct evidence for Dionysus worship in Minoan Crete is scarce, scholarly theories suggest the presence of a proto-Dionysian cult possibly associated with wine, ecstatic states, and a bull deity. The appearance of Dionyso on Mycenaean linear B tablets succeeded the Minoan civilization of Crete further hints at an earlier, if not fully developed, presence of Dionysus-like religious practices. These early forms likely revolved around agricultural cycles, fertility, and perhaps an initial connection to death and rebirth. By the time we get to the archaic period of ancient Greece, Dionysus rose to prominence as the god of wine, ritual madness, ecstasy, fertility, and theater. The evolution of this we see particularly clear on the island of Naxos, where he held a special connection to its people, and they left behind physical remains of their devotion. As we will talk about next time, alongside these wilder, earlier cults, his circle of influence would grow. And festivals such as Rural Dionysia, which featured phallic processions and were crucial to the eventual development of Greek tragedy and comedy. Dionysus represented a liberating force, challenging societal norms and offering a connection to the divine through intense emotional and physical experiences.
Now, as you know, we are a new podcast, and we are always looking to please the dark magic that is the algorithm. So wherever you are listening to this, whether it be Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or YouTube, if you take the time to give us a positive review, like us, it goes a long way for us. We will also be starting a Patreon soon, as soon as we have enough content in the backlog. There you can hear episodes out of topics of the main purview of the main podcast. We'll create videos, do Q&As, sell merch, and in general, get up to hijinks, so keep your eye out for that.
If you have any ideas, comments, or just want to say hi, you can reach us at timetravelersclubpodcast@gmail.com. We love it when people say hi. And as always, thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.